Hi, I'm Jennifer Johnson, and welcome to the Excel Tip of the Week. This week, we are going to talk about locking cell references in Excel. Let's take a look at how to do that. Okay, many of you know that when you copy a formula in Excel, Excel will copy the references either down or across, depending on which direction you are going. Let's take a look at how that works. Over here in my Excel workbook, you can see that I have got a sum formula located in cell B12. It's just the sum of the numbers for the north, south, east, and west division. If I want to copy that formula over to the right, and I want to move that into column C, row 12, all I have to do is copy. I'll use Control C to copy, and then I'll use Control V to paste it. By looking at the cell references in that formula, you can see that we are now summing up column C. By moving the formula one column to the right, Excel just moved the cells one column to the right. So it went from summing up B7 to B11 to summing up C7 to C11. Excel does the same thing when you are going down or up rows. So if I have my difference column here, I'm located in cell D8 right now. It's the difference between the budgeted number and the prior year actual. If I want to copy that down, I want to drag it down, I can just grab the formula, the little box on the far right-hand corner of the cell, wait till my cursor changes to a cross, and drag that down. What you'll see then is every time I moved down a row, Excel changed the cell references. So I began by calculating the difference in row 8, and then row 9, and then row 10, 11, and then row 12. So copying formulas and moving them up or down, or left or right, Excel knows exactly what to do in terms of changing the reference location. And that is the default standard. But sometimes you want to leave a number static. You have created a formula maybe, and you don't want a piece of that formula to change. So let's take a look here at what we can do. I'm going to delete the budget number. The budget number for 2021 actually needs to be 10% more than the prior year. So we can use a formula for that. So I'm going to go ahead and put in a formula. I'm going to start, like all formulas, with my equal sign. I'm going to take the prior year number and I'm going to multiply it times a 10% increase plus 1, because really we need to add it or multiply it by 110%. So I've got my formula ready, and the cell that is going to be static is cell C4, the 10%. Right now, I've got it created as a normal formula, and I'm just going to keep it and copy it down. So as we learned before, anything that has a row reference, so 8, 9, 10 is going to keep moving down. So as I copy this formula and I paste it down, the number seems a little weird, doesn't it? It didn't increase. Let's hit F2 on my keyboard and take a look at what the formula is. Well, I'm still taking the prior year number. I'm multiplying it now by something that's not 10%. Notice what happened as I moved down and copied my formula down, the cell reference to the row moved down. That's not what I want to happen. So let's go back to the original formula first, and let's think about what number we want to be static. We do not want this number to change. Well, obviously that's going to be cell C4, the 10%. So here's what we can do. I'm going to hit F2 again to display my formula. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put dollar signs before the C and before the 4. Those dollar signs lock my cell reference. Wherever there is a dollar sign, that component of the cell reference is locked. So in this case, I have locked the C4, the complete reference to this cell. So I'm going to hit enter. And now I'm going to try to copy this formula. I'm just going to drag it down. And let's see what happens. As I look at each one of the rows of my formulas, you can see that the row moved down for everything but the reference to C4 or the 10%. Now, I've got one other trick to show you guys with that. We put the dollar signs in manually, but let's undo this and do it one more time. I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to undo this. So I've just hit the undo button on Excel's on my ribbon. And the trick I'm going to show you is the F4 key. The F4 key locks your references for you, and it's just a quick keyboard shortcut. So I'm going to place my cursor here in the C4 reference, anywhere near it, before it, or right after it, doesn't matter. And I'm clicking F4 on my keyboard. The first time I click it, notice it places the dollar signs both before the C and the 4. If I click F4 one more time, it only locks the row. If I click F4 again, it only locks the column. And I do it one more time, and it's gone. So I'm going to go back to both dollar signs existing by clicking F4. Once I have that locked in, again, I can copy my formula and paste it down, or drag it down, as is the case. All right, so what I've got here is I've got maybe some inventory for my convenience store, let's say. I have got some candy and I've got some gum that we have. I have quantity sold and quantity on hand. So what I want to figure out is I need to fill in these cells over here on the right. The quantity that was sold for every type of gum and the quantity on hand for every type of gum. So it's very easy with a small number, right? We can manually add those references and numbers up. But what we're trying to think about here is as you develop a formula, try to make it as useful as it can be for all future scenarios. I'm going to start with my equal sign and I'm going to type sum if. Now, SUMIF is a special version of the sum formula, and it adds up numbers when a condition is met. So the first argument of my formula is the range. What am I searching for criteria? Well, right now I want to know how many items were sold that have the type gum. So I'm going to search through the type of candy that we have, or the type of food that we have. Then I want to give it a criteria. I could give it a criteria of gum in quotes, but that's not highly useful because I have to manually type that every single time. What if I sold gum and candy and soda and chips and medicine? So it could be kind of a pain. So I'm going to link here to my type, which is gum. And then what it tells us to do next is, well, if I find that the type is gum, what do I do? Well, I need you to add up the quantity sold. So I've created my formula. I've not put any cell references in here, but I'm betting you can start to think about what references might be useful. Let me hit enter and see what we've got for our total. So we sold 22 individual items that were considered gum. Well, I can check that by adding up my three numbers, and yes, that is 21. Well, let's copy that formula down, right? It's a good formula. If I copy it down and I paste it, let's see what we learn. Well, I'm going to hit F2. Notice what happened. I copied the row down. So my row range moved down, and it's no longer starting on row 2. It is, however, still referencing the correct column and cell here for the type, which is going to be candy. Now, I could just very easily drag these references back up and make the formula right, but what if, again, if I had a lot of different types of product? So let's go back to our original formula and think about where we could use cell references and lock those cells. So I'm going to click F2 one more time. What are the ranges that we do not want to change? Well, I don't necessarily want my type to change at all, right? So I'm going to lock the references to A2 through A8. I'm clicking F4 to bring in those dollar signs. And then I'm going to lock the references to quantity sold. Again, clicking clicking F4 in each component of the formula. Well, I've done that. Let's copy and paste that down now and see if that works better. So I've locked my references. I'm going to hit F2 so we can see what we're looking at. All right, that seemed to work pretty well, right? I'm searching through the full range. In the second row, I find all of my items that are candy and I can add them up. Well, that's great. Let's take a look at one more scenario then. I'm going to copy this formula to the right. If my quantity sold is used for the first one, if I copy it to the right, shouldn't we be able to get quantity on hand? So let's copy that and move it, paste it into the quantity on hand. Well, I'm pretty sure the answer is not supposed to be 0, so let's see what happened. When I moved it to the right, because everything was locked, it left the formula in quantity sold. It left the formula in type, and unfortunately, I didn't lock the reference to the word gum, and that moved over to the right. So let's think about what we could do here. I'm going to go back to the original formula again. I know that I want to lock gum, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to lock gum completely. When I copy things to the right, I don't want column A to change at all. I want that still to stay the same. And when I copy it down, I want it to stay the same. So I'm going to leave the references here in A2 to A8. But let's think about a couple of things for a minute. If I copy to the right for quantity sold, I want the column to change. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the $ away from the C's. So that ensures that if I copy to the right or copy down, I am always going to be able to move to the right, but ensure that I'm looking at the same rows. And I actually just realized that I made a mistake on my reference to column G. For column G, I want the row to change. So I'm going to delete that cell reference. So let's see if I have fixed this formula in a way that applies to all 4 of my boxes. So I'm going to copy down, and I still get 33. I'm going to copy and paste across, and let's check. For gum, the number is supposed to be 25, and for candy, it is supposed to be 53. So by taking a little bit of time and thinking about where you want to lock those cell references, you can create a formula then that can grow with your data set. You don't have to modify it or change it every single time you copy and paste it. So that is taking a look at cell references.